Wonderful work, everybody. It was really amazing to see how different and wonderful everything looked. Um, and I just wanted to throw some questions out at the group, and you can jump in if you got something to say. If you don't have to. But first of all, I'd like to just ask what made you want to do the MARC residency, and was there anything in particular that you set out to accomplish in your time on the island, and did you accomplish it?
I can respond to that. I think the first question was the reason applying, correct? Um, I think that, as I said, I had gone out to the island multiple times, but I had always gone with people. And I think one of the things that attracted me to this was that alone and having that time to myself and that time to think as an artist, and not have distractions. I think I really loved it, where you're really with yourself on that island. And I think I really, again, like I said, I had that flow state that I wanted to capture, and I really feel like I got it when I was on the island, being able to take that. It's still in me. I can't let go, so which is great.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously knew about Monhegan through its history and painting, and I had never been out there, but I have spent a lot of time on the coast of Maine and um, had made, many drawings when going to the coast of Maine, but I had never sort of made sort of substantial paintings in response, and I had wanted to do that. And kind of like Justine's saying, the MARC residency offers this solitude where for me, painting it's a little bit like a house of cards, like delicately balancing things and seeing if it holds together. And it really helps to have the kind of headspace that residency offers you. So when I found that residency, and it just sort of aligned with a lot of things that I wanted to try out. And yeah, the second question was, did it did it lead to those things? And totally. It's not like I knew what I was going to do when I was there, but I had some ideas of things that I wanted to experiment with. But certainly, it has also stayed with me, and I'm still sort of making work out of that a little bit, and it's changed how I work, back home in a little bit. I think it's made my work more specific, to place. I think I made more like generalized, like landscape places, and then I was like, this hill, this rock, burnt head, gull rock, whatever it is, that tree on the upturned tree on the the Blackhead Trail or whatever. This idea that those features are deeply specific to an exact location, I think, is really interesting.
Great.
Yeah, I did a residency on Norton Island the summer before, and it was just 2 weeks. So I loved that, and it was super rough and wonderful. And then I went to Monhegan with my husband for the day, and I thought, oh no, this is like next level. I have to get to this place. So I'd also spent a lot of time in Maine. We got married there, and then just like painting a little bit on Deer Isle. And I guess same as Steve, like the history of it, it's like iconic for landscape painting. I was shocked when I got in. But in terms of, I think it sort of changed my experience there. It's hard. I think it's like a longer process to realize if I actually like realize my goals. I think it's like changing how I think about place. Like, I think before I was able to just go somewhere quickly and paint. And then after those 5 weeks, it was like developing this relationship. And now I'm thinking about like making paintings over like a year in the same place, like different paintings and how it changes and the seasons. And I think that also ties into the roots. But I think those 5 weeks, in a way, it sort of ruined me because it's like I want this sustained experience, like this kind of flow state that Justine was talking about. But it's also wonderful. I'm just trying to figure out places closer to my home so it's actually feasible for me. It would also be wonderful to like go to Monhegan in the winter and try to paint. I don't know. Just an idea, but I know housing is a bit tough. So, but yeah, I think in some ways I accomplished things. In some ways, I'm still figuring it out.
Great. Uh, was living on the island what you expected? If not, would you explain? And did you develop a routine while you were there?
Again, having spent time on some main islands that are pretty rustic, I wasn't sort of taken by surprise by it in any way, but I was taken by surprise by the island and how amazing it is. The living part, I loved every aspect of all of it. And that was really fantastic. And yeah, and the cooking in the kitchen and getting food from the local farm, the network of farm plots that come together, that was really special. And pressing apple cider with the community was really great. In terms of a routine, yeah, I mean, I would get up in the morning, have my coffee out on the back deck because the sun shines brightly in the morning on that back deck. And it was migratory bird season. And man, I'm not a birder, but wow, I was blown away. And they're all in that wetland area, which is pretty cool. Have coffee, read, and then, go out drawing basically, and wandering around. Then I would come back in the afternoon and work on the paintings kind of in the evening and at night. That was generally my routine.
Nice. Yeah. That's great that you got to press apple cider. That's fun. I found, I know I was only there for 2 weeks, so the 5 weeks would have been a totally different feeling, I think. But I cannot believe 2 weeks. I started really missing my husband. I didn't know that would happen. I was like, wow, he really filled a lot of my space of talking. And I think I was doing the same thing. Like, okay, I'm going to go out in the mornings. I'm going to go do this. Okay, I'll come back and eat. So I found myself like trying to do a little routine. And then I'd be like, it's 3 o'clock. I just did all that stuff. What do I do now? So I found like that feeling of time just was so abundant, because I think the noises of life are just totally away. And then you're like, oh, okay, so I'm still here. Hi, it's just me. So I can appreciate your guys' 5 weeks of finding that.
Yeah, I think being alone was actually really hard for me initially. And I was like sick when I got there. It was just initially it was really hard. It was an adjustment, but I'd actually met some people on the boat and hung out with them for a few days while they were there. So that like eased the transition a little bit. But I think I did gradually like adapt to that. Like it was just like a quietening that happened for me. Like, and I did develop routines. I would like work in the morning, usually eat lunch while I was out and go to a different spot. And then by the evening, I'd usually like take a hike, not without my pack, like just kind of to like decompress from the day. But the sense of time was really strange and different and wonderful. And yeah, I think what did I love? I love like the tacos. That place is amazing by the water. Yeah, there were just like all these little discoveries that I made. Time to read, just sit on that back deck, which is incredible. And all the space, like the house was so much bigger than I expected. You have like a whole extra bedroom, and then the studio is like a bedroom. It's just a lot of space for one person. And I could spread out, look at my paintings, and there were just a lot of like wonderful surprises.
Hey, did your practices on Monhegan differ from those in your usual space?
I think so. I mean, gosh, what an amazing thing to have that time, right? I have kids, I have a teaching job. I usually work in the cracks of life. So it was a real treasure to have that amount of time to like Justine was saying, at 3 o'clock would come around and be like, I've already done all these things, and there's still more time in the day, and that sense of time opening up. And I can remember, so I think that did change my practice from how I normally work. And it was in a sense a deeper work than I can often get into at home. So that was a real treasure. I've tried to keep some of that in me as I work, but yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I think that I loved it. Like, I think you touched on that, Steve, that you brought things or ideas out to the island of things that you could try or experiment. And I did the same thing by bringing mediums that I didn't usually use. And it was awesome to take that moment to just do things. Like, I found myself even on the ground of the in front of the studio, like the shadows of this plant captured me, like, and I'm just on the ground tracing this shadow, like things that, like, I think maybe I don't in my normal practice might have that time to do, right? Just stop and think and stop and trace a shadow or watch that. But I think that I brought that back with me, like that. I feel like that was sort of one of my promises, like, don't lose that, Justine, when you come back. And so now I find myself, I'll just be in my neighborhood watching a shadow on the ground. I'm like, yeah, it's still there. I still got this. But yeah, I think it is, you get that moment of time to just remember that, okay, you can have the busyness in life, but then you can still have the watching of all that of all the things that happen around you.
Yeah, I guess I had to, like, I did bring a lot of boxes on the boat, but I had to sort of pare down like what I brought. So I was limited a bit. Like, I couldn't work bigger. Not that I'm working huge these days, but there were those kinds of constraints. I think for me with residencies, it's just like an intensity thing. Like, somehow normal life is always different, even though like I have time, a lot of time in my life to work. It's somehow just like the busyness of daily life, chores, everything just gets in the way. So when you just carve out this space and you have this like sacred time, it's like a headspace. It's a different thing. So in that sense, yeah, it was very different from my normal day-to-day life.
I feel like you've all sort of touched on this a little bit already, but in what ways did Monhegan, the place, shape the work that you made there? And did you know what you wanted to create before you arrived? If so, did being there change your plans?
I think I did sort of have an idea. I think one of you said that, like, that showing up to one spot and like painting, like go paint Whitehead, right? I think that I feel like that's where I was, but then during my residency, I kind of wanted to break that idea, and I think I did that, right? Like, I think that feeling of place really, I think, is what I think we keep saying is like really what I got, right? Like, I got that out of that residency, that like, how do you capture not like just what you're looking at, but how do you capture more of like the essence and the feelings around you, the sounds translated. I loved, like, Steve, your like colors, right? That you just see randomly, or yeah, like how do you like kind of get those different things that are surrounding you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I tried to be open to what I was experiencing and really not have so much of a set idea. So, and like the woods, I said, that was totally not expected and wonderful, and made me think about other painters to look at more when I came home. Like, I was looking at more at Neil Welliver then, and just really has changed like my general interest. Like, so yeah, I did definitely change trajectory.
Yeah, I mean, I love improvisation. I play music too, and I'm sort of, all my work is sort of dedicated to that process. So with that in mind, I try not to bring too much into it, but it's also realistic that we all bring something to the landscape or to our experience already. And so I try and acknowledge that too. But I really, you saw the first slide, I just brought like a bunch of canvases that were like different shapes. Some of them were like window forms, and some were stretched canvas. Some of them were like skewed frames that didn't make it into a painting. And yeah, I just started working. But I think when I was working, because it was so overwhelming, there was so much, it was just infinite there. I could spend my whole life painting there, right? And I realized I had to, at some point, I had to like narrow it. And so I was like, well, what are like the archetypes of this place, like, and not in a literal sense, but for me personally, what were some of the like main things? And I don't know why, but like facing east during the sunset became like a thing for me. In the evening, I'd like run out to Burnt Head or something at the end of the day to like watch the sunset, often looking back, but then noticing this incredible, the Atlantic, and you can see the arc of the Earth up there. It's amazing. And so I knew that was something I wanted to paint. And so that idea, I think, was something I definitely discovered through just being there and working over time. And it took time. I really had to, like the first 2 weeks, it was like, it's just overwhelming in a sense. I had to like come down and see more clearly or something. It took a while to get to that.
So, were any of you aware of other Monhegan artists or the work of other Monhegan artists, either from the past or contemporary? Did you meet any other artists while you were there? And if so, whose work speaks to you?
Do you mean like historic artists or other residents?
Either way, I mean, I'm just curious if you showed up at the island knowing of artists that have a history there, or if maybe you met other people painting out on the island. Just being aware of other people making art, either in the past or present.
I was surprised. I went to the Farnsworth on my way to Monhegan, and like I didn't know Kenneth Nolan lived in Port Clyde and would go out to Monhegan and made those kind of target paintings in response to like lobster buoys in the ocean and things like that. That was really cool for me on my way out to think about that, especially because I'm making kind of abstract paintings. Definitely I knew about all the like 19th century luminous painters who at least painted up in the area, if not on Monhegan itself, and then Bellows and Rockwell Kent, and so many others, right? Hopper and so many people really. And then I did have a former student of mine named Neville Caulfield, who grew up in Maine. He was a resident a year or so, 2 years ago, something like during the pandemic. And so I know his work, of course, and he's a really good photographer. So.
On one of my first days, I met Allison Hall. She was really nice. We tried to like go paint together. It didn't quite work out, but I visited her studio. For a bunch of other artists, I'm kind of blanking on their names. Then there were some workshops I saw, but I felt really fortunate to be there before like the influx of like the painting tourism, I felt like, by being there in June, and I think I was late May. But yeah, of course, the history, and like currently, I think it's Jamie Wyatt still lives there. The Wyatts have had a house, so seeing that house, and then like some of my absolute favorite painters, like I mentioned, and I know there's that like walking tour of Monhegan book I think I have. That's kind of fun. That has like the little spots where different painters worked. So yeah, how can you not know? I mean, it looms so large. But yeah, I wish I knew more of the current people. But I did really kind of protect my time and wasn't really going out to like work with other people, I suppose.
Yeah, that's sort of how I started on the island, was with a friend who I feel like she was my little tour guide of telling me all the artists and like kind of Robert Henri's the art spirit. Like we would go out and we'd discuss that, and that's I think what captured me in the beginning of the island. I was not a plein air painter 10 years ago. I was more of a still life and figure artist, like studying the figure. And Monhegan changed that for me. And I feel like I remember just that feeling of tapping into the masters, kind of feeling like, oh, there's people here. And like I kind of was like, oh, I have that spirit. Like they were like, I could feel everybody's energy, the art energy on the island. And then when I was there on my residency, I had met, I might need some help, Leith, with Lisa, is it Khan?
Lisa Yan.
Jan
Oh,
and
wow. Yeah.
and her mother.
Yeah, Elena.
Elena. And so I got to see her work, and I just like, she leafed through this work and I just connected so deeply with her work. Like, just like, I was just like, oh my God, it's breathing. Like, I just want to tap into this woman. Oh, she's amazing. And then Lisa told me about the Monhegan, the woman of Monhegan, and that there's this YouTube video. So I went back to my studio, and I'm like trying to get the Wi-Fi to work. And and then I was like, this is great. I started with the men of Monhegan, but now on my residency, I'm with the women. So I like really tapped into like getting the woman of Monhegan. And then I got invited to the Wednesday figure drawing class with, you're gonna have to help me again, Leith, on her name.
Daphne?
Daphne, thank you.
Yeah, Daphne.
Just like, you know, it all just like connected, this whole like thing, and the energy of the woman artists of Monhegan. So it was great. Thanks for the help.
Sure.
Fantastic. My last question for you all is, what, if anything, did you take away from your time on Monhegan?
I think it taught me how to be on my own better. Like I'm really dependent on my husband, and I mean, I go away for a few days to the Cape, like my family has a house there, but just to really like be with my work and settle into that. And also to like, again, like a reminder to follow my instincts. Like, what do you feel strongly about? What do you have to paint? Like, what is your gut telling you? And just like the roots, which, seem so dead, either completely dead, but alive. And I'm really excited about that still this time. So those are some of the big things for me.
Yeah, I think I taking away just that feeling of always being able to be creative, and like keeping that like creative energy. And as an art teacher, realizing that whenever I'm making in front of my students, or like just, just that energy of giving out that art energy, I think even to my students, that's all part of the process. And like, I think just like realizing that, like how to integrate that process of all of us as artists together in one unit in a way. I think I just kind of took that. It's always with me, and to trust that.
Yeah, I mean, I think my drawing practice on the island, for at least for my art, was really important. Like I had always made drawings, but they were often in pencil or something. And so it was like I discovered colored pencils. It's just so like the dumbest thing in the world. But I was like, this is amazing. I did not do this, 10 years ago. And so it actually really charged up my drawing practice to a new level. And I've been I've just been filling notebooks all year since I've been there with these colored pencil drawings. And so that's been great. But, I think there were a lot of things in my work that I was sort of struggling with getting them to come together. And it just easily happened there. And I think it just revealed certain kinds of artistic approaches that I could take that now are feeding, new works, and I'm having new ideas. And that idea of like the specificity of a particular landscape, and seeing it from a point of view of someone who's like living in that landscape. I've been thinking about like a farmer, when they see the hill that's on their land or whatever, it's like really meaningful to them, and that's different than an artist just painting a hill. And so I've been trying to think about that. And I really started contemplating that on Monhegan because of how specific it is, and because of how, I don't know, it's like every motif there seems so poignant or something. But then those things exist everywhere, actually. Wherever you walk around. There's all of that. So that was kind of profound, I think, in a sense. It just opened something up in that way.
Great. Thank you so much, all of you. I want to throw it to Leith and Jude if you have anything you want to add or ask.
Thanks. I do have one more question. I'm curious if you have any advice for someone who would be potentially considering applying for the residency, or yeah, I mean, I guess that's my question. If somebody was thinking about going, what would you say to them, or what advice would you give somebody who got in and is, you know, just packing to go, maybe?
I think my thing is I almost didn't apply because I didn't think my connections to Maine were strong enough, quite frankly. So I would say if you have like a reasonable connection to Maine, even if you weren't born there, don't live there, but like if you know you have really strong connections through your life, go for it. Like the experience is phenomenal. It's definitely the best residency I've done, although I miss people somewhat, but I think it's taught me the most and is still teaching me the most. So that would be my big thing. Like if you have a good relationship with Maine somehow, just do it. You won't regret it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And yeah, I mean, I think I would want to know if they, you know, obviously they need to know that it is really solitary and that you have to schlep, right? You have to like put stuff on a boat and bring it with you. You know, so if you've never done that before, that's really significant. You're really out there. And that's what makes it so special. So I guess I would just let them know that it requires that, you know, and that it's about solitude. The island, you know, features solitude in a significant way. And it isn't always easy. I also had my moments where I was like, what am I doing? You know, I have a family. Like, what am I, you know, I talk to them like every night, but it still was like, I wasn't with them. Right. And that was difficult for sure. And that can be a major thing. So, but on the other hand, it's a real, it's a special treasure to be able to do that, you know, at one point in your life. So.
Yeah, I'd have to say, from an art teacher perspective, I think it's awesome because it really supports the concept that, you know, K through 12 teachers support that we are artists too. So like making sure that practice is kept up. And I think it's important that I love that as an art teacher teaching that you are a practicing artist and you're teaching art is awesome. So being able to say like you get that support. I applied twice too. So like I got denied one year, but I kept, you know, I got my little letter that said try it again, and then I got it. So I was like, yay. And then rolled canvas is great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Jude, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I can echo as a former resident myself, everything that everyone has said, especially about the sense of place there and this just this ambience of the art, you know, the experience of making art and it just being such almost like a way of life, as well as the 360 awareness of the ocean and the elements, and it was transformative. So I do want to encourage people that haven't applied to apply again or as a first time, and that all the work that you've shared with us is really outstanding. So thank you so much.